I will be reading from the Gatheka papers of Hazrat Inayat Khan on the subject, The Intoxication of Life, Part 2. We'll begin with the invocation. Toward the One, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Remembering that when Murshid talks about intoxication, he is speaking of the constant stimulation of our senses, of our minds and bodies in the flow of life. The intoxication of life. Sometimes one loves someone, one admires someone, and it may go on for days or weeks or months, even years. And then suddenly you think, oh, I was wrong. Perhaps something comes along that's more attractive, and then one is on another road. The person doesn't know who one loves or not. In the action and reaction of life, sometimes a person does things on impulse, not considering what you're doing. Or perhaps in business or profession, your profession or commerce, a person has an impulse. I must do this. I must do that. They seem to have all the strength and courage and perhaps go on and on. Sometimes it lasts for a day or a week or a month, and then one forgets what one was doing and does something else. This shows us that a person in life is like a little piece of wood raised by the waves of the sea, where the waves are rising and the wood is rising and then cast down when the wave descends. Our life is floating in this ocean of the activity of the world, not knowing what we are doing, not knowing where we are going. What seems to us to be of importance is only what is happening in the moment, which we call the present. The past is a dream, the future is in a mist, and the only thing clear to us is the present. The attachment and love and affection of people in the world's life is not very different from the attachment of the birds and the animals. There is a time when the sparrow looks after its young and brings grains in its beak and puts them into the beak of the young one. And they anxiously await the coming of the mother who puts grain in their beak. And this goes on until their wings are grown. At one time the young ones have known the branches of the tree, and they have flown in the forests under the protection of their kind mother. And then they fly on and never know who the mother is or who was so kind to them. There are moments of emotion. There are impulses of love, of attachment, of affection. But there comes a time when they pass. They become pale and fade away. And there are times that a person thinks there's something else one desires and something else one would like to love. The more one thinks of human life in the world, the more one comes to understand that it is not very different from the life of a child. The child takes a fancy to a doll and then gets tired of the doll and takes a fancy to another toy. And when the child takes a fancy to the doll or the toy, the child thinks it is the most valuable thing in the world. And then there comes a time when the child tears up the doll and destroys the toy. So it is with humanity. The scope is perhaps a little different, but the action is the same. all that one considers important in life, such as the collection of wealth, the possession of property, the attainment of fame, rising to a position that one thinks is ideal. Any of these objects before the person have no other than an intoxicating effect. But after attaining the object, one is not satisfied. One thinks, well, that's nice, but perhaps there is something else that I want. It's not this that I wanted. Whatever one wants is the most important thing. But after attaining it, one thinks it's not important at all. I want something else. And so let's take a moment to reflect on this teaching. The way our desires come and go, it's natural, it's normal. Just like it's normal that a child plays with a toy and then wants a different toy. And all of these toys, all of these objects, all of these goals, all of these ideals intoxicate us. We want them and they become so important. And then we think, no, this isn't really enough. And yet remembering that in this Sufi teaching, this is not a teaching of withdrawing from the world, of becoming a hermit, though of course you can if that is your stage of development or evolution. But the Sufi lives in the world. So the question becomes, how do I live? Knowing that when I see something is good and I pursue it, it's also an intoxication. Knowing that when I see something is bad and I fight against it, this is also an intoxication. And yet, based on my condition in life, it's very important to take seriously what I see as good, what I see as bad. Always remembering that I'm like that little piece of wood on the ocean, rising when the wave rises and falling when the wave falls. What is it that is truly important? What is it that nourishes my soul? Thank you.